Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode.
Hi, we're back.
We're back and better than ever.
That's
perhaps.
right. We'll find out.
We'll find out here soon. So I wanted to kick us off. I've just been noodling. We're entering sweaty season.
Yes.
Woof. So I want to know, and we were just joking about plugging a wall of water bottles. So what are your 3 summer staples? You can't live without it in sweaty bumcrack Tennessee.
Yeah.
The humidity, the heat, all of the above. So what's your trifecta?
You know, I'm glad that I saw the preview of this question because I think if I had to answer it on the spot, I'd be like, I don't fucking know. AC? Praise the AC.
Yes, very true.
But I put a little thought into it.
Wow.
And so one is the Cool Plus pillow from Coop, which is the best pillow I have ever had.
Ooh.
In fact, like I have become so obsessed with this pillow that
you travel with it.
I had to buy the travel version because if I'm going to pack that baby into a carry-on, I got to have the smaller one.
There's something about being in your 30s and now never going anywhere with your pillow.
Yeah.
I say as I'm 25. But I'm like, I feel like it's my 30-year-old friends. It's coming for me and I'm seeing it.
And I had a rude awakening when I woke up at the Radisson Hotel at the Mall of America a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, she can't move.
Oh, my neck is necky.
So that was it for me. I bought the travel version and this pillow, and it is so cooling. The little Cool Plus case is just feels so good. So that's one. Athletic Brewing Upside Down. It is a golden non-alcoholic beer, and it is so good. Perfect for the pool, for the beach, for any time of day.
Sure.
And then I put swimming pools. Shout out to swimming pools. But I will say one thing that's not great about like being a real adult is if you have a house and you no longer can get into an apartment complex pool.
That's true.
I do miss it.
Yeah.
So, and I wish honestly that I liked natural swimming holes better, but they're all so cold here.
Very cold.
So cold.
And I'm just not, everyone's like, Red River. Bitch, I flipped a canoe when I was 16 and a snake swam past me. So, like...
No, thank you.
Catch me in chlorinated waters. Or the ocean, because I respect her. I'm a crab. So
I respect her and fear her deeply.
And we should.
Yeah.
And that's how we should feel about most women in our lives, to be honest.
What are your summer must-haves?
Okay, mine is kind of on the fly, which is hilarious because I asked this question. So... I would have to agree with the swimming pool. You will catch me swimming all summer. You will catch me baking like a little baked chicken on the side with SPF 50, everyone, because I'm alabaster, as we discussed prior. So definitely a swimming pool. I think I like your choice of bev. Mine is definitely going to be kombucha.
Okay.
I'm having a booch summer.
Okay.
I mean, I'm kind of having a booch day every day. But it's extra. There's something a little extra.
And maybe you go for like a tropical, like a pineapple or something.
Yes, the golden pineapple synergy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm like, I'm rocking with Miss Synergy. So really, like on a nice crunchy ice. It's just very gorgeous, very bubbly, very fermented. And then I think legitimately for the past 2 summers, and now this is like a legit summer staple, is hypochlorous acid spray. Are you familiar?
No.
Bitch, I'm about to change your life.
Okay.
So, hypochlorous acid spray, you can literally spray it on anything. So, I'm talking your sweaty ass Crocs, your face after you've worked out. So, like, especially if you've, like, done a little workout, or if you're just walking around the farmer's market sweating ass, it just kills the bacteria on your face. So, like, I'm in the dreaded mid-20s acne. I'm, like, in the second puberty. So, I'm always just trying to, like, keep the face clean. But, like, under the pits, I've sprayed my dog's bed with it. It's, like, not harmful. Everyone's like, acid. I'm like, girl, it doesn't matter. You're going to briefly smell pool water. It's a little chlorinated.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of love the smell of chlorine.
Okay, me too. I would go swimming as a kid, and then I would, like, smell my skin, and my parents would be like, hey, fucking stop doing that. And I'm like, well, sorry, I'm intense about it. So you do get a little bit of, like, Pool and Spa Depot. It's kind of giving. But then it subsides, and I instantly feel refreshed. There's, like, has to be either it's a, like, internal cooling agent to me where I'm like, wait, but it's so good. It's so refreshing and just, like, kind of keeps the yuckies at bay when you're sweating. It's great for a beach day.
Is there a brand you recommend?
What is it called? Bryotech, maybe? Is what I've ordered before. And I like it because it came in 2 bottles. So I have a home one and a purse one, which is tea. But I've also tried, I know, I haven't tried it yet, but it's on my list to try Prequel. I think it's like a skincare brand, so I want to try theirs. Okay. But you don't have to get like a super name brand one. Like, it's all the same shit.
Right, same chemical compound. Yeah. Sweet. Check it out.
Sweaty summer. We're coming.
Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week.
What you got?
I threw down The Handmaid's Tale. I am working my way through season 6, which is the last season.
Did it stop, or is that like just the most recent?
Like
the final?
Yeah,
like is it's done? Okay, because I never watched it. I was too scared.
It's fucking scary, and so I've literally watched, and I've been binging, and I don't binge the show, and if you watch the show, don't fucking binge it because it's dark.
Oh yeah,
and I've like laid in a hole where I'm like. But I was like, I need to get this done. But I notoriously put off the last episode of a show because I don't want it to end. So I'm waiting for this weekend for me to have like my full moment to watch the finale. But it's been fucking crazy so far, just like everything that's happening. And I can't stop talking about it for that reason. And then I also can't stop talking about the fact that like I really sat with myself and I was like, wait. I've been watching this show since, like, I was in college.
Okay.
And I remember, like, my, like, six summers ago, like, messy situationship summer. And I was watching the show and, like, with this man who, like, I think hated me. Like, just...
Yikes.
Like, and it was just so messy. And I was sitting watching the show, and for whatever reason, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not doing this anymore. Like, for whatever reason, like, this show, like, kind of helped me shift perspective where I was, like, really centering this man. And, like, obviously this whole society, this totalitarian society is completely centering men. And so I was just, like, feeling a little bit dramatic at the time, right? Where I was like, how have I just, like, decided or whatever? But I did, and it was the best thing ever. And I really found, like, my own second wave of feminism in that, like, my personal journey in that, where I was like, yeah, well, you know what, fuck this. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, I don't seek to center men in this way, so I will not do it anymore.
Wow.
And so it was really, that show just, like, really, I don't know, like, tickled my brain cells a little bit. And so now when I'm watching it all these years later, I'm kind of like, holy fuck. And I'm also scared because everything that's happening, there are, like, real life reflections that are happening. So it is existential. But I really think anyone could get something out of this show, but don't binge it because it's really intense.
Yeah. And I just love that as an example of the power of fiction, right? Because, like, we talk about, you know, how I'll freak out when I find a fiction book that I love because I don't read a lot of it because I'm just like, who has the time? And, you know, there's all these great nonfiction books I want to read and et cetera. And so sometimes I get in that mindset of, like, fiction, whether it's like TV or books, it feels like a waste of time. And I'm like, no, because like literally the research tells us that it expands our capacity for empathy.
Yes.
So that's really cool. That
really
personal
moment. So I was like, okay, cool. Thank you, Handmaid's Tale. And also I'm scared of the show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Well, mine is I finally watched Flow last night. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So it's the Oscar winner for, I mean, the ones that just happened, so for 2024 films, for Best Animated Feature.
Oh, okay.
Normally, I'm not a big animation girl, except for, like, the Pixars, because, I mean, the stories are just phenomenal. But I'd heard enough good things about this film, and the cast is animals, that is it. And also, unlike a Pixar film, there is no dialogue. It is, the animals do not use words. They are using their animal sounds. So this hour and 20-minute long feature, which was made by, I think Latvia is kind of the main country, but it was like a partnership between some production companies in several countries in Europe. And it was so funny because, like, so it's streaming on Max if you want to find it.
Okay.
Excuse me, HBO Max. We are just a little bit fickle in our branding. But it's, so we turned it on last night. And you know how in the beginning of a movie, they show you, like, whatever production companies do it. And sometimes there's, like, 2 or 3. And you're just like, oh, okay, cool, partnership, right? Like, it takes a village. There were like 12. We were just like, it just keeps coming.
Oh my God.
But, and they used this open source, like free computer graphics, like animation software to make it.
Really?
Over the span of 5.5 years. So it took quite a while to make.
Why did that almost make me start crying?
Oh my God, I know, the dedication.
Yes.
And now this Latvian film, because I guess the director is Latvian.
Yeah.
And so now it is like the pride of this country. Like they put up a statue of the cat who's kind of the main character in Latvia because of how well this has done. It was the most watched movie in Latvian theaters in history. So they're so proud of this film, and they should be. It is, I will say, heartbreaking, but not in like a, like, oh, really bad things happen to.
Sure.
I mean, there's some painful moments. If you go to doesthedogdie.com, which is a great website, by the way, if you don't know about it, you originally started off as just like, hey, I want to watch this movie, but I can't watch it if the dog dies. So does it or not? Right? I know.
As a cancer, how have I never known about this?
So now it's like there's all of these like user-generated categories of like, was a child abandoned? Was there abusive parents? Like all of these potential triggers.
Oh, wow.
And users go in who've watched the film and they say like thumbs up or thumbs down. So it's like, because there might be disagreement on like, well, was that child abuse or not?
Sure.
Right? Whatever. Was that animal abuse? So you can go if you're a sensei like me. Although I fear if I had looked at it, I may not have watched the film. It was not that bad. Like there's a lot of goodness. I would say the goodness overwhelms the painful parts.
Okay.
But she was crying.
I'm sure. If there's animals, I'm crying.
Yes, animals in vulnerable situations.
Yes.
And also like post-apocalyptic world. Yikes.
Yeah, spooky.
So,
I know we both kind of were on our dystopian lore.
Truly. And it is definitely worth a watch. So check it out.
Okay.
Now it's time for Step Into My Office, where you get advice from your favorite professionally qualified, personally peculiar therapists.
Okay, so this listener says, hi, Val and M. My therapist is encouraging me to join a women's group to have some extra support, but I'm kind of freaked out about it. The groups I attended during my residential treatment and IOP were inconsistent, sometimes great, but other times felt like it was a revolving door of facilitators and participants. What have you taken from group experiences that you think is valuable for folks like me to know? Thanks, Curiously Connecting.
Ooh, do it!
I know, do it!
It'll be so fun. And so, like, obviously we'll get into the nitty-gritties of, like, who and what with group stuff. But, you know, already, like, good points here. You're in individual therapy. And so, like, that's always a really strong part. Some people don't need, don't want groups because they say, well, I'm an individual. So what is it? Like, what's the difference? There's tons of differences in a really good way. And especially if you're, you know, you put here, like, looking for extra support. So connecting with other people is exactly what that space is for, and getting to mirror and share your story and learn about other people. And so I really hear the parts too in groups that I've had. We've kind of talked about if folks have done residential or if they've done IOP and some of the differences. And this isn't like we're going to shit on IOP and resident. Not at all. Those are like very valuable components of treatment for some folks. And sometimes those aren't necessarily closed groups, right? Like people are coming and going because everyone's, treatment path is different. And so there can also then be rotating of facilitators, just depending on that as well. So if you're looking for somewhere, I think this listener is with having more of like an outpatient experience, you may end up picking a closed group versus an open one, which just means people can come and go, you know, pretty much at any time.
And then there's like kind of things in the middle of that, which is sort of like what we do, where it's like, you can join at any time that there's a spot, but we want you to stay for at least a few months. So there's some consistency there.
Yeah. Any thoughts for them?
Yeah, I like I said, I know we'll get into a lot of the details of it, but I just say give it a shot.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot because there's so much that you might be surprised that you would gain. And it is while I agree with you, and having worked in residential groups, like I've seen some incredibly powerful things happen in that setting. But I do think it's a little bit apples and oranges. So if your experience there wasn't great, like I would say still give groups a try.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay. Okay.
Welcome to The Lore, where we share anonymous listener-submitted stories about literally anything. The more cringe or jaw-dropping, the better. To submit your story for a future episode, find deets on the gram at ButForRealPod or at GaiaCenter.co/podcast.
I'm going to, as we're entering summer, as we're in May, I'm thinking about a few summers ago when I graduated college, and I went with my two besties from high school and my best friend from college, Valerie, to New Orleans. Also, look at me, also just like blending friend groups, like how kind of cute and hilarious. Yeah. That trip was fucking crazy. And of course it is, right? Like we're 21, 22, and we're just like in New Orleans and like it's like COVID stuff has lifted a little bit, but like we're still masking at the airport, you know, like there's just things. And so the thing that I wanted to talk about is I got caught in a stampede.
Yikes.
Literally. And so it was fucking scary. So this was maybe our like second to last night. Me, Francesca, Kaylin are on Bourbon Street. I've just re-upped us. I'm the one buying the frozen hurricane. So like we're just walking our way up, you know, it's 2 a.m. So it's kind of getting that time. But we were staying right in the French Quarter. And Valerie was at the hotel, safe. And so I just remember turning... Also, I'm drunk. Hey, it's 2 a.m. I'm lit. Like, it's that time. And I just remember turning around, like, hearing loud noises. And I turned around. And there are people just, like, rushing. And I mean, like, crowds. Wow. Probably, like, hundreds of people, right? Just running towards me. And I'll be honest, when it comes to like my fight or flight, I'm prone to freezing. I've like frozen multiple times in certain situations in my life. That's been really difficult, and I've had to do a lot of work around because I'm prone to freeze. I don't know what the drinks. I must have just thrown it. I must have literally just thrown the drink. And I started running. I took off because everyone's running towards me. And so I'm thinking, is there a shooting? You know, like your brain is going a million places all at once. I've never been in a situation like this before. Sorry, we have gnats. And I remember, you know, kind of like how they do with Broadway where like they'll put up those little barriers, barricades. A barricade comes down and people start piling up on top of one another. And I see Francesca running. And Franny, my darling friend, she's one of my little short friends. And I literally just had this moment where I was like, she's about to end up underneath a ton of people.
Oh, my God.
And I literally grabbed her with all of my might.
Mama bear.
Pulled her so hard, she thought someone was taking her purse. So she's holding on to her purse. She ripped someone's purse off of their body because it was so frantic.
Everyone's just like
everyone is just packed and frantic and running and falling over each other. Like it was dangerous. It was scary. Wow. And so we eventually got by a cop car, and I'm like ducking under this cop car. I'm thinking people are spraying. Like I have no idea. And we're just holding the purse, and Franny goes, I'm holding someone's purse. And I just went, oh my God. And so we left it by the cop car. I was like, they'll take care of it. And it all just, the adrenaline finally like settled. And I just looked at the two of them and I just sobered up and I started freaking out. I mean, I'm crying, I'm panicking. Yeah. And so the three of us just like looped arms, and they were so good with me. They were like, it's okay. Like you can see the hotel right there. It's okay. Like we're almost back and Valerie's there and it's okay. Like they were so nice to me. And I was just like, I can't believe it. Yeah. It's like 3 a.m. and I'm like, did we almost just die?
Wow. Do you know if there were any serious injuries?
No.
Because I'm so curious.
I'm like, I was on Twitter the next day. I'm like, accident or shooting on Bourbon Street. I'm trying to watch the local news. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And so I'm like, were they just closing up shop and everyone's like, someone's being drunk and stupid and starts doing that? But like, it made me think of when you're in the movie theater. You can't yell fire, right? Like, it's kind of one of those instances where, like, we all will feed off of each other in that way. So, of course, this is, like, one of my first big friend trips to, so I call my parents the next day, and I'm like, hey, and my mom is like,
okay, bye.
My mom's like, oh, my God, like, freaking out. I was like, fuck, I, like, shouldn't have told her. But also, I was freaked out.
And also, you were okay,
I was
God.
fine.
And it's, like, so many stories like that. It's, like, the first line is, like, everything is okay, but...
Yeah, like, my brain was like, what if it's on the news and they're going to freak out? So I was just like, hey, like, I'm fine. So it was fucking scary.
Wow, no kidding.
The more time passes, we laugh about it a little bit more now, but there's still very much that part of me that was like, are we going to die?
Well, and, like, most of us, it's kind of like when you're a kid and they tell you, like, here are the things you should be scared of based on, like, movies and, like, Indiana Jones shit, right?
Right.
And you're like, oh, God, quicksand. Most of us have not had an encounter, right? And I feel similarly about, like, a stampede. Like, it's just kind of not a common thing for most of us to encounter.
No.
So I never really was, like, worried about encountering it.
No.
But then I remember hearing maybe, like, 10 years ago or something, maybe less, I'm going to have to look up and I don't remember. It was, I think, an Asian city, like a big city.
Yeah.
That there was around Halloween, maybe, or on Halloween, that there was a stampede and it killed, like, hundreds of people.
No, people will die from being trampled. People can die.
It's terrifying.
It's really scary.
So I'm so glad that you guys made it. I hope there were no serious injuries. But,
I know,
like,
same.
Please don't stampede each other.
No, and sorry to the lady whose purse we snatched. We left it by the cop car. I hope you got it back.
Purse
you know?
snatcher.
Like, purse, like, oh yeah. The death grip on the purse. So be careful if you go to New Orleans. Because it can be fucky around there.
Yes.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
Today we're talking about group therapy, and I wanted to kick us off with, of course, the zaddy of groups, the dad of existentialism. We talked about him last episode, so I thought this was fitting. But of course, from Irvin Yalom, he has this beautiful quote from his book, The Theory and Practice of Group Psychotherapy. Quote, people need people for initial and continued survival, for socialization, for the pursuit of satisfaction. No one, not the dying, not the outcast, not the mighty, transcends the need for human contact. I just love him.
So good. It's so funny.
Good.
We have, like, a couple of brand new baby interns.
Yes.
And I had my first supervision with them yesterday. They haven't had any clients yet. And they were like, any, like, resources you recommend? I was like, Irv Yalom's Gift of Therapy. And then I went on, I was just, like, giving the whole spiel on him. And he's just phenomenal. So
good.
But yes, he did write one of the sort of, like, textbooks on group therapy.
Yes.
So any of y'all clinicians know what we're talking about. But yeah, what is it that brings people to groups? Because it's such an interesting thing, right? Like, we can't argue with Yalom's statement that people need people.
Sure.
But, like, why do we need group therapy for that? So there might be a lot of reasons that someone could seek out group therapy. A lot of times it might be like a specific group or topic that they're looking for, like a grief group, or, I mean, and it can get very specific, right? Especially with the internet now. I mean, but even in person, like, one of my best friends, this is going to sound horrible because she bounced back and forth between Puerto Rico and Grand Cayman. So I can never remember which one she currently lives in. But whichever one, like, not a huge, like, metropolitan New York City type place. Sure. But she even found, like, a survivors of suicide in-person group. And it was her first group therapy kind of experience. And she just raved about it.
Yeah.
And so it could be something really specific like that, but also just, like, people who are seeking connection generally, like, even in this, like, arguably more connected than ever world, obviously many of us are feeling more disconnected than ever. When you move to a new city, it's hard to meet new people. And so if you're looking to forge friendship, and this is kind of an interesting thing that we may get into at a later point more in the conversation, but just, like, therapists will have differing opinions on, like, whether they encourage or recommend that their group participants, like, do form outside relationships.
Yeah.
My opinion is, like, why the fuck would we stop that?
That's the point.
Like, sure, there could be complications that arise. Sure. But, and that's not a requirement. Like, it's not that you, like, have to go and make friends with your group therapy people.
No.
Because those relationships can be incredibly meaningful, even if they primarily just happen in that room.
Yes.
But yeah, so I wanted to say that. So for some people, that meeting potential friends is a reason they might go. And then, of course, for some people, it's just going to be what you're thrown into. If you're going into intensive outpatient or PHP or residential, and again, like having worked in that setting for years, I would get to see the whole spectrum of experiences of people coming in who were like totally gung-ho to like jump right in and share and just would get so much out of the group experience. And then others who were either really intimidated and kind of guarded and scared, or ones who were just like, fuck this, I hate groups. Groups are not helpful. And, you know, sometimes they would stay in that place, and other times you would see them kind of open up and you would see that shift for them, which was really cool. But yes, often it is just going to be a thing that is a part of an experience like that. It's the bulk of the experience at those higher levels of care. And then there might be things like court-mandated groups as well.
Yes.
But outpatient groups, you can find both online and in person, depending where you're at. So many different types of topics, but also more broad kind of general like women's groups that there's, you know, not necessarily a specific topic, but just maybe a population kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as far as the types of groups, process groups are kind of where you're in the space and you're just, there's like open sharing, right? So like whatever is coming up for you in your life. And then what's really cool is you'll get into like the relational interpersonal dynamics. So the shit that comes up in group, sometimes in those relationships or in those interactions, is what we call grist for the mill. Like it's valuable in and of itself. So even if there's conflicts that happen in the group or just things that come up in the group dynamics, that would be a big part of, or at least a part of what would happen in that processing. But also people are bringing stuff just from their lives and then connecting around it, right? And it's not about advice giving. It's not to say that there's never a place for that. Like there's, you know, sometimes people might request that and maybe there's a safe way of doing that. But generally it is about connecting and relating, having something mirrored to you. Then there's also psychoeducational or skills-focused groups. So those are a little bit more where the facilitator or the therapist is in more of a teacher kind of educator role, like whether you are learning specific skills or you're learning about concepts. I personally love groups that kind of blend both of those, which is a lot of what we do. And then there's support groups, which are kind of an interesting territory because they're not always a support group could be led by a mental health professional, but it doesn't have to be, right? And so it's really not considered a service of therapy, but it could be offered at a practice that offers therapy. Yeah. So it's kind of that in between, like even the 12-step would be considered sort of a type of support group or peer group.
Sure.
But there's many of those as well, which can also be really valuable. And, you know, even though groups can feel really scary and intimidating because you're like walking into this group of strangers.
Yeah, it's very new kid at school vibe.
Totally. But it's also what can happen in that development of the space. Like, yes, you walk in, you're kind of like, I don't know about these people, we'll see. And then usually there's a process of kind of forming the guidelines or kind of ground rules of the group. And that creates some safety. And the more that familiarity develops with good facilitation, it can really become a truly safe space. Yeah. There's these group stages that are kind of 101, any of us who've done group work or learned about groups. And I'm sure this is true for obviously not just therapy groups, but groups of humans in general.
Yes.
That
I saw it with like team development.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So Tuckman came up with these stages called forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning.
All the ings.
I know, and just the rhyming. We love a rhyme, right? If we can't have an acronym, we need a rhyme.
Honey, I learned that for the NCE quickly.
So just those stages of like, yes, it is normal for that storming to happen.
Yes.
When you are figuring each other out. We're figuring out what are our dynamics together. We're learning each other's quirks. So just know all that to say, like, know that that's a normal part of the process. Even if things get messy, it doesn't mean that they won't sort of settle.
Yeah.
That's a very normal arc. And then the group cohesion is really a powerful way of moving people toward meaning making from their shared experiences, right? And what's so cool is that, and we'll get into this more, that people from so many different walks of life who might be shocked that they can relate on things can indeed find those valuable shared experiences. And that is one of the coolest things.
And really, like with Yalom's principles, which, you know, we opened with his practice of group psychotherapy. So like Yalom established very specific principles. Universality. That's like the biggest, and probably even how I approach groups. That's the number one thing I'm always thinking about. You may all never have known each other outside of the space. You may not have passed each other on the street and connected in this way, but here we are. And how interesting is that? And so we often talk about the group being the mirror, or the group as the therapist, even, as Yalom says. So the idea that the group itself, that container, that space, becomes the healing agent. And so universality, right? Realizing that you're not the only one that feels alone. You're not the only one that's here dealing with grief or anxiety or needing DBT skills or anything of that matter. So being able to have a mirror held to your aloneness, your struggles, your own humanity is important. Interpersonal learning, so seeing yourself more clearly and being able to safely do that with how other people see you. Again, the container being a safe place for relational work in that way. Corrective emotional experiences. I think this is one that maybe surprises folks the most about groups. So being able to be seen in a completely vulnerable state and being accepted, or reflecting something in a group space that maybe you've held a lot of shame about, and having someone say, me too, I've done that too, or I felt that way too. And so sometimes it's the connectedness, or it's having people say, I never would have thought or done that, but I'm glad that I heard about it from you, and that made me think about the world differently. So any of those emotional experiences there. And then again, kind of teetering with emotional risk and repair. So sometimes in that storming process, we're kind of seeing some behaviors, you know, maybe someone's prone to talking or feeling like they're soaking up more of the space, and other people are trying to figure out what their space looks like here. So being able to learn to sit in uncomfortable feelings of what people are mirroring and be able to lean into that in your own time. Of course, everyone takes this in their own time, and the vibes of the group and the cohesion, like we've been saying, is important, but being able to reflect your own experiences and also sitting back and listening is a huge component of group. And I feel like really helps people think about their relationship to active listening skills, and then how you apply that in your relationships, how you apply that with yourself, what that means. So being able to take risks in that space and be offered corrective experiences can offer something that individual therapy cannot give to some people. And so it's really interesting if and when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the common sort of things that comes up for people, like before they're trying to make a commitment to, do I want to join this group, or do I even want to consider group therapy to begin with, is like, oh my God, what if I hate it though?
Yeah,
right?
What if I hate it? I'm scared.
So there's some common barriers and fears to joining groups that we wanted to talk about. And it's funny because as you were talking and having this conversation, so it's always meta, right? Like as clinicians, we always have to be willing to look at our own shit.
Yeah.
And so I've been in numerous support groups and found a lot of value in that. I've not been in aside from like a one-off, a traditional therapy, like ongoing group.
Same.
And because I've been on the other side of that and seen how valuable that is, I'm sitting here going, girl, why don't you walk your talk with this, right? And so then I started going through all of these thoughts of like, but what if people in the community see me, who know me in this group, and like whatever, right? So like that's, you know, a common fear is like just being seen for who you are. And
I'm glad you named that.
Yeah. And like, you know, do people know of me? Like whether you are like me, you know, a business owner, or you're someone who has any sort of public presence, like I know that can be a fear for people in general. And I will just say, like, we've seen a lot of that come through our doors here. I've seen it in residential And it really does not have to be a barrier because, again, of course, there's confidentiality. And while that can be a shared norm and agreement, like, no, there's never any guarantees. But I've never personally had anyone come back to group and be like, this person, I ran into this person and they said blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it would never happen.
Sure.
But I think that generally the kind of people who are showing up to group therapy are going to be the kind of people who are going to honor that agreement because they want it to be honored for themselves.
Yeah,
so,
confidentiality.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that fear of being seen. There's also comparison or shame or feeling like you don't belong. And I think that's one thing that comes up for me too. And I want to just speak for like anyone who is feeling like, but do I need it? Like, do I really, and do it like, I need to speak today in group because like I'm doing okay, like all things considered. So like, I don't really need it. She probably needs to talk more, right? So like, give yourself the space. There is you do not have to be like, quote unquote, sick enough to need group or to benefit from group, right? It's not about like needing or comparing yourself to other people's suffering. Whatever you're bringing matters and whatever you're bringing is contributing to everybody's experience. Of course, another barrier could be, have you had a bad past experience with a group?
And I hear that also a lot.
Right. And not only like just, feeling safe sharing with like peer groups in general, which there can be a lot of wounds from that people have. But definitely like maybe there was a therapist who was not very skilled in facilitating groups, or they're just, some of it depends on the milieu of who happens to be in the room. And not to say that like, oh, if you don't just like love everyone in your group, like you want to be besties with them, that it's not going to be a good experience.
Sure.
But, I can see how depending on, who's in the group, who's leading the group, like, yeah, there can be bad experiences. And then that could prevent someone from having a potentially really amazing group experience if they are scared to give it another shot. Of course, there's feeling pressure to commit. And different groups, like you were saying, open versus closed is sort of that terminology of, is it ongoing open enrollment, which is sort of open, or is it closed, like this group runs for these 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it is, and then it closes, and then maybe we'll do another cycle of it. So some like a closed group, they do require commitment, but it is a time-limited commitment. So that's kind of nice. And then for more open groups, like, again, it's not just like, oh, well, if you sign up, you're here for life. Like some people choose to be, and I know therapists in town who have been running groups that have been going for 20 plus years. And I think that is incredible, right? Think of the power that happens in that room.
Damn.
So, but that's not like what you're signing up for, right?
No.
So, and then of course, like I said, the facilitation matters. And of course that doesn't mean that, again, you're going to love every single thing that the facilitator says or does.
Sure.
But if you've had bad experiences in the past, like, just know that not everyone in every field is good at their job, but there are people who are excellent at groups.
And giving it a shot, right? Like starting it is scary if you've had, like we said earlier, like if you've had a difficult or like not an aligned experience. That's totally fine. And so I get that sometimes we have the polarity, well, this left a bad taste in my mouth, so I'm not doing it. And like, sure. And if that's your truth, that's your truth. And also like, be open. You never know. So let's talk about fit, because that's on the like clinician back end. That's something that we consider when we are a group facilitator. And also it's a important conversation to have. So kind of getting into who and the whens. When you could be a good fit for a group and what that means. So you're feeling isolated and you want connection. That's usually a huge one. Yeah. Most of the time when I kick a group off, why are you here? Because I need to connect with people. I work from home. I don't leave my house. Or I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm struggling, or whoever. Yeah. So again, goals, groups are kind of helping reduce the loneliness. We're looking at that universality and being supported. So that's a big one. You want to explore how you relate to others. So again, we're looking at relational patterns, how you show up in conflict, or how you receive feedback. Again, so if someone is giving you feedback, how do you take that? What is that like for you? Or just, again, the vulnerability factor. What is it like for you to show up vulnerably and honestly and have the group members hold that for and with you. You're ready to be both supported and challenged. Group therapy is not ass kissing. We're not all sitting around being like, kumbaya, and everyone's just like, girl, yes.
Right.
Okay, this and that. And I feel like that's a big misconception that a lot of people have, where we're all just, especially unfortunately with femme or women like dominated groups, that it's all just kind of this like, which is just stereotypical and gross. But like, there's been really powerful moments in those groups that I've ran, and it's not all about sitting around and just like enabling people, you know, it's like actual real truth.
And you're not criticizing each other, but it's like you're not blowing smoke up each other's ass either.
No.
And so it's this interesting space of like, we're not here to evaluate each other good or bad.
Sure.
But we will hold a mirror that sometimes might be uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah. And how can you tolerate that? And what's that? What is that like? You can listen and respect group agreements. There are quite a bit of stuff that goes in. Can you honor the time boundaries? Confidentiality, the shared norms. Can you respect and honor the parts of you that you see in the group members? And can you respect and honor the parts of yourself that you don't see, and what that means? So kind of managing that, even if groups get emotional or tense, being there and kind of, sitting with the discomfort, opening your window of tolerance. And lastly, and I think a really important one, you're doing okay with basic emotional regulation. I don't expect people when I'm running groups to walk in and like be the master. You don't have to have, all of the skills. That's also some of the part of it, how we kind of blend teaching and process. But having a basic kind of understanding of your triggers, perhaps, or being able to just manage sometimes the intense emotions without completely shutting down, or most importantly, being harmful to yourself or others, because that can add a different dynamic to the layers of group. So again, you don't have to be the most like wise whoever, and also can you do some deep breathing, have some basic mindfulness, whatever it means for you to feel regulated, to hold when it can get a little bit uncomfortable, inevitably, in groups sometimes, when we're with people.
Because what happens otherwise is someone doesn't have like a little bit of a foundation of that. Is like, they might just storm out of the group. Which isn't great. I mean, and maybe that in the moment, if that's really where that person is at, that's maybe what needs to happen.
Sure.
But it's, it's not a great experience for them or anybody else.
Yeah.
And I would say the only exception to that of like having that basic foundation of emotion regulation is if you're doing something specifically like a DBT group where the whole point is to gain those skills.
Yes.
Right. So that's a little bit about kind of like when you are a good fit for group therapy, for any of those kind of considerations. Let's talk about when maybe you're not the best fit for group therapy, at least right now.
Yeah.
So one would be if you are in acute crisis. And again, there's some wiggle room here for like, there are such things as crisis support groups where that is literally what they are doing.
Yes.
So we're talking more about like, if you're looking to join a process group or something, you're probably wanting to be a little bit like do your individual work, get that little bit of foundation of stability underneath you, and then start a group, or look at a higher level of care where you will also get the group experience, but you will have a little more scaffolding and containment.
Yes.
Another thing to consider is if you struggle with a lot with impulse control, outbursts, like you dominate conversations, you interrupt a lot, you are explosive in your reactions, obviously, we can see how that would be difficult for group dynamics. So I would say, like, find a DBT group or consider that higher level of care. Do your individual work.
Yes.
And also, you mentioned feedback and how that's important. So if you struggle to tolerate feedback, and I think it's like, if you struggle with that, you're probably breathing, right? You're human.
Yes.
Because to some degree, we all do.
Oh, sure.
But it's like there has to be a level of willingness for some of that. And again, a good facilitator is not going to let anybody just like,
start
criticize you. Exactly. Yeah. But it is that space for relational work and mirroring. And so it's actually a good opportunity to build those muscles of being able to tolerate that kind of feedback. But if you know that that's something you're maybe not ready for and you need to expand that sort of window of tolerance, that's great work to do an individual. If you're processing trauma for the first time, and again, if this is like a crisis support group thing, then that might just be what it is. But in a typical outpatient process-related group, you're going to want the one-on-one support for that initial kind of round of processing. And then you might also add on a sort of trauma support group as well. Just because that can be very heavy and intense for you, right? You just need that individualized support. And then if you expect the group to fix you, and this could go with anything, if you expect therapy to fix you, if you expect pills to fix you, like it's just, it's all about being engaged in the process and taking accountability for how you need to show up and do the work too. So it's not about just like, oh, I'm going to go to this group and get advice and solve all my problems. It's being in relationship. It's that relational consciousness. So
Word.
Yeah. And kind of, going back to the idea of like the fear of committing, the fear of joining, a lot of times there's opportunities to sort of test drive a group, especially if it's an open group. You can just be like, you know what? I'm just going to sign up and I'm going to try it out. And I don't know if I'm going to want to do it long term. And then, of course, there are going to be groups like ours where it's like, well, we do ask for a little bit of a commitment. We'd prefer to not have people bounce in and out for one session.
Yes.
So instead of that, we have what we call group scaffolding sessions, where they're optional. You can join a group without doing them, but they're these individualized sessions, 30, 40 minutes, are individual, where the whole purpose is to talk with the group facilitator, to get to know them better, for them to get to know you better, to talk about the group process, to learn a little bit about the current dynamics of the group, and really to do that one-on-one support. And you can do that before you commit to the group. You can do that while you're starting the group. So that's something that we've created recently that we feel really proud of, because it's just such a way of helping people land more gently in a group space and feel more at home there. And then just remembering that, committing to showing up ahead of time can feel really scary. But if you're willing to give it some time, that consistency can be super rewarding. I'm thinking of an example where there was a client who attended a group once and was just like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. And one of our group therapists, Callaway, just responded so beautifully to her and kind of, challenged her to take up the space that she did not allow herself to take up that time.
Yeah.
And it's going really well for this person. So it's just like, give yourself that opportunity to give it a little bit of time, see what it feels like to do that consistently.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I always like to throw down about groups, and something that, can be addressed in group scaffolding or when you're inquiring about groups, oftentimes we look at groups, and not everyone, but as like a financially accessible option, like being able to meet, it's typically at quite a lower cost than, say, someone's individual rate. But again, having both and so not a lot of people know that you can inquire about a sliding scale or a reduced fee spot. Now, not everyone does it. That's totally fine. But if you're wanting to kind of do that work and you think one of the main things is finances is a barrier, ask,
Right.
It's totally available to you for some practices and some folks to do that so that you could have that experience.
And I wonder if it'd be helpful for us to mention, like, what's the going rate for group therapy, right? Which is a hard question to answer because city to city, potentially internationally, there could be a wide variability there. But I would say, well, first of all, support groups are either going to be free or low cost.
Yes.
Right? Because they are not a clinical facilitated space necessarily. And so that's a really good option if you need to find something and you don't have resources or you don't have much.
Yes.
Therapy groups, like I say, widely vary. I would say anywhere between like $40 to like $80-ish per session. And if it's a specialized group, that's 4 weeks of this or 6 weeks of this, it might even be a little bit more than that per session. And then especially if you think about if there are 2-hour sessions or something, they're probably going to be more than that.
That's true.
So, and there's no magic number either for like how long a group is. We've kind of experimented with different things. We've done 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 75. And so it's, just depends on the group topic and also the members and what everyone is up for.
Yes.
I personally love the sweet spot of like that 75 minutes.
Yep.
Fit that into your evening without it being overly cumbersome. But yeah, we charge around $55 for our groups around that length.
Yes.
But I have seen in Nashville those prices are climbing at a lot of places.
Okay.
And, you know, that's our world we live in.
Yeah.
But I do think it is one of the ways that if a practice can offer that at a more accessible rate, that's a wonderful thing to be able to give more people access to services.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely ask or inquire and kind of poke around if you're interested in groups. And then I would just wanted to throw down our groups. Hey, we do groups here.
Yeah,
and it's
do.
so fun.
If you live in Tennessee.
Yes, if you live in Tennessee and would like to join, all of our groups currently are being held in person, but TBD with virtual.
Yeah, and I think we have options for people to join
virtually.
Even a group that's mostly in person, they can join virtually, and just know that, you know, obviously it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic, but we have the tech to make that work.
Yes, that's how I run my neurodivergent group, Unmasked. So if you are 18 years and older and are a neurodivergent adult, that's my processing group. We have a big hoot and holler and a neurospicy time up in there. And that's been really amazing just to connect with neurodivergent adults around here and seeing their group cohesion. So really have loved that group. We also have Coming Home to Yourself, which is our women's plus group. So anyone that's femme identifying can join the women's group. Again, with kind of Coming Home to Yourself and Unmasked, we kind of blend having some material, having coping skills, learning something, a topic, and then, again, focusing on the processing relational aspect. So bring in your stuff, inquire with your folks, get some feedback. So those groups are really great.
And I have to say, because I don't even think you know this inside lingo that has surfaced recently, that it's been called Chatty.
Chatty.
Right? CHTY, Coming Home to Yourself. Chatty.
Oh my God, Chatty.
I know, right?
Wait, how fun. I'm can we never not say the same thing? We're just girls. And then, of course, but not of course, we are currently enrolling, right? And
Starting
June
9th. But even if you're not joined by then, you can join later.
Still join our Tearing Down the Walls men's processing group. Hey everyone, we're thinking about the male loneliness epidemic. So if you are a man, someone identifying as a man, please inquire if you're interested in that group or know a man in your life that would benefit from a safe, vulnerable place led by our wonderful Sam DiMartino, resident soft boy.
And obviously, if you're not in Nashville or Tennessee, check your own community. Yeah. And we love matchmaking. So if you're hey, I'm in Detroit and I'm trying to find a group, we'll help you.
We'll be on it.
Yes. But for real, group therapy may not be for everyone or at all times, but for a lot of people, it is where deep relational healing can happen. You don't have to be perfectly articulate, ready to present. You don't have to feel totally ready emotionally. You just have to show up.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Open yourself, take your own pace with that, and be open to the process of sharing, sitting in the silence, sitting with, fellow human beings. And it is so, so beautiful. So highly recommend.
And now our musical segment. Now that's what I call Okay, where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reactions. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you.
So for this week, and I had this moment of deja vu because I was were we together where an Atomic Kitten song was playing? And I was this is Atomic. Was that you?
I don't recall.
Okay. So it might not have, it might have been another millennial.
She's not so good.
Yeah, we're not here. So my song this week is Whole Again by Atomic Kitten. Have you ever heard of them?
I feel like I have, but why have I not delved into it more?
That song.
Okay, wait. But I'm holding on?
Yeah. They
that's
But I know it's probably not.
I
know that's not their song, but in my mind, that's their song.
Wait, that's Blondie, right? Blondie. I'm pretty sure Blondie did that originally.
That
is so funny. That's an Atomic Kitten song.
I'm it's so me being born in 1999. So Atomic Kitten is an English girl group formed in 98 from Liverpool. They are made up of Jenny Frost, Liz McLarnon, and Natasha Hamilton. This song is from their debut album Right Now, which dropped in 2000. Wow. Whole Again is the group's biggest selling single to date and sold over 1 million copies in the UK and was the 13th best-selling single of the 2000s in Britain.
Okay, so you're bringing a millennial tune.
Bump. Yeah, but this is so nostalgic for me.
From the UK.
Yes.
So home territory. Okay. Listeners.
You have to watch the video.
You should go watch the music video for that.
It sells it. It totally sells it.
The Y2K fashion is giving.
Honey, the low-rise jeans are giving crack.
It's giving don't try to bend over.
The eyebrows are giving skinny and pale. It's giving...
a little white eyeliner.
Oh, yeah. We were in there.
Oh, my God.
That was my blueprint for womanhood, y'all.
Okay, well, things are making sense.
I mean, I agree. What's your song?
Okay, my tune... Prepare yourself.
Oh, shit.
For deep emotions, okay? Because Celine and Miss Barbra Streisand and Celine Dion recorded this tune for their respective 1997 albums. Love that. Let's just put it on both, right? I just wanted to share this little snippet from a review from AllMusic's Matthew Greenwald, who said at the time, their voices blend together extremely well on this song, with both singers trading off and joining together with a wonderful reassurance. Musically, the song is dominated by what is, unfortunately, a somewhat bombastic arrangement.
Love that word.
Right? This tends to get in the way of a very pretty melody. The overall arrangement seems to come out of the 1980s school of overproduction, and it is a bit cloying. However, the vocalists take the song to a higher place with their performance, and the song and recording have aged fairly well despite this.
Oh, I'm so fucking excited for this.
Okay, so set the scene, me with my little Iowa karaoke machine, dual tape deck, so I can record on one tape and then duet to myself on the other tape.
Oh my God.
So I would duet with this myself.
Well, of course.
But I also had like a couple of friends who we learned the song by heart, so we had our 2 microphones plugged in, and we are duetting this. And I could cry right now just thinking how powerful. So I've been walking around my house since yesterday. I'm scared. So afraid to show I care.
I'm like, so who's Celine and who's Babs? To be continued.
Oh my God. So enjoy this song.
I'm excited. I just fucking ascended. The power of Babs and Celine.
I know.
We were acting a fool up in here. If anyone's in session, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry. You can bill us extra. I'm so, what do you mean? First off,
yeah,
divas. Beautiful.
Yes.
Why are they so beautiful?
Just phenomenal.
I'm like, wait a fucking minute. And then we were just geeking because we were like, wait, the music video?
Yes.
It's just them.
Just recording in the studio. And yes, deeply.
Because why would a man be there? He wouldn't.
No. So that's another video we fear you have to go and watch.
The videos today really just took us. Wow.
Yes.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
What you got?
So, young people are joining offline clubs to get back to having real personal interactions. So, enter the Offline Club. This is a Dutch social movement space looking to cultivate public spaces to revive the times before we buried ourselves in our phones. They host events based around cultivating social interaction through conversations, books, board games, etc., and even host digital detox retreats if you want to go that far. Club chapters are popping up all over major cities in Europe. I remember looking at the Instagram post of someone, but they had set up in a train station. So, if you're waiting for your train, someone could just go in there and, chat if they wanted to. The brand is encouraging anyone to start a club by registering themselves as a business entity, and they will provide you with training, branded materials, all of the things. So there was, stats in the article about, British I think it was a survey of British teenagers, but how they're, basically wishing that they had social media curfews and they want to be spending less time on their phones and wanting to be having more of these spaces. And I can see boomers looking at this and being like, now we have to create a whole thing about people talking to each other. Yes.
Correct.
Yes, lead paint, death starers. Yes, we do, because people are not talking to one another. And I just think, it's kind of cute and kitsch. So I would be so excited and Also, of course, Europe, they're on it.
I
They're like,
know.
hey, guys, we gotta, like, play board games and kiki at the train station. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how that would work for us, we individualized American folk, but I have hope.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
do.
someday, somewhere.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
like, shout out young people. We're trying.
Yes.
We're trying.
Oh, and thank God for it.
I know it. What's your news?
Well, not me this morning at the kitchen table with my mom and stepdad who got in town last night going, y'all need to tell me some good news because I ain't got shit for the pod.
And quickly.
So they recently went to the first ever conference for a new association called the Alliance for Texas History.
Okay.
Why is this new organization needed, you might ask? Well, because the MAGA people are threatening and suing people left and right to remove actual history, right, from classrooms, from textbooks, and rewrite this even more whitewashed bullshit. So some of these...
Small dick energy.
Very small dick energy. So some of these historians are like, yeah, no, we're not going to take it. We're not gonna take it.
See, I knew that
And
one.
they're like, we're gonna, thank you. I don't know who it is, but we're gonna start our new organization. So the former chair of the Texas State Historical Association, which is sort of bending over, shall we say. His name, I'm not gonna say it right, Walter Bunger. But he was actually, so my stepdad is a historian and former history professor at Texas A&M University. So this guy was on my stepdad Phil's doctoral committee before leaving Texas A&M to be UT's big-time Texas historian. So he was one of the co-founders of this new Alliance for Texas History. And he said, who would have thought a history professor would need liability insurance? Yeah, in this day and age, apparently, to speak truth, you do, right?
Woof.
And my stepdad was saying this morning that the best part of the conference was in this general session, the speaker asked, because there have been 4 historians who have been sued recently by some of these MAGA people for speaking truth. So historians getting sued.
Okay.
So they asked them to stand up and they got a standing ovation. Like, there is hope, people. If Texas can do it, if Texas can keep the truth alive,
sure.
we all can.
Wait, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, all right, let's
I know.
go.
We
Let's
can do
fucking go.
this.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, listeners, that's all we got for you today.
Go, like, stomp on some tiny dicks. I don't know. And, like, preserve history and, like, listen to Babs and Celine and just know that you're a girl if you're a girl.
And enjoy some kombucha.
Yes, and burp.
Okay, bye.
This has been another episode of But For Real, produced by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder and edited by Sean Conklin. But For Real is a Gaia Center production. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office, as well as coaching for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at the Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod. But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment. Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy here about sharing our opinions on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. See you next time, bestie.